Thank you, Abby. So have you heard this story before and you wondered what the heck is going on here? Me too. It's so cruelly contradictory. I mean, what parent would contemplate such a thing? And what kind of a message is this for Father's Day? We'll get to that. Anyone who has lost a child or is somehow estranged, your hearing of this story is more difficult. You know the preciousness of life. So what are we to make of this story? We Christians tend to take the Isaac-Jesus parallels to make it a foretelling of how the father sacrificed the son. There's a 3-day journey, the donkey ride. Isaac carries this burden of wood on his back, the sacrificial lamb. But if we do that, we miss important points from the early Jewish story. Abraham came into the place that God had promised him from a land where, like many other ancient cultures, the people worshipped many gods and they practiced human sacrifice, including children. Abraham is still getting the hang of this worshiping only one God thing. But old habits die hard. So while we're horrified to think that someone would sacrifice their child, I mean, even the whiny one on the long road trip. You've been there too. Okay. Same trip, different place. Yeah. You know, obviously Abraham is distressed at what God is demanding of him. But he still prepares to solemnly carry out these instructions because it's the same thing he would have witnessed back in the old country. I just can't imagine not begging God for your child's life. When our oldest son Alex was 2, I picked him up at the Sitters one evening, and his one eye was red and swollen, and within an hour of being home, it was swollen shut. And we waited nervously in the emergency room. Well, after an overnight on IV antibiotics flowing into that skinny little arm, his body started to fight the infection. So thinking the worst was over, I said to the doctor the next morning, well, can we go home now? And I'll never forget his reply. He looked at me and he said, look, your son has a serious eye infection. If it travels up the optic nerve to his brain, he will die. He got my attention. And we were staying as long as necessary. And Ann and I were begging God for our son's life. In situations like this, we grasp for hope, right? And we make all kinds of promises too. I'll be a better parent, a better person. Oh, I'll have more patience with my child. Oh, we promise to be better Christians. And we promise not to sacrifice our child to our own ambitions. We're going to do like it says in the book of Proverbs, train children in the right way, and when old, they will not stray. What's that about our own ambitions again? Look at all the things we make our kids do. There's the many practices, the lessons, games, and performances. And then when they're old enough, the job to pay for the car to take them to their job. And soon it's a 7-day-a-week cycle of busyness. And did we remember to teach them anything beyond the cute Bible stories? Have we taught them anything about living a life of service to others and about how to share their time and money with God? Abraham is poised to sacrifice his child when God stops him and says, I'm not asking you to sacrifice your child. I'm asking you to choose me over every earthly thing. Choose me and I will provide you with everything you need. I'll show you a way of living that will bring you joy. Well, do we drown out that voice of God as we prepare to sacrifice our children to the gods of modern culture? What have we trained our children to do, to be? True story. A parent was bragging about how their child had 3 games in 2 different sports on the same day. A younger sibling said to the parent towards the end of the day, "Can we just be a family tonight?" The parent thought it was so adorable. The child was the one with the wisdom to not be burned on the altar of parental ambition. Parents, and nowadays grandparents, are faced with the choice of keeping kids busy so as not to be judged as a bad parent for not keeping up with other people's expectations. You know, keeping up with the Joneses used to mean just material things. Now it's an arms race to see who can be the busiest. Except when it comes to God. Kids can learn about God when they're older. When they're in the emergency room with their own kid. When they're holding the hand of their dying parent. Now, we're just going to keep them so busy that there won't be any time for them to come under bad influences. How's that working out, America? At the risk of oversimplifying things, how many people do you know that no matter what they do, they never seem content with what they have? They constantly try to fill up their lives with busyness and with things that come at a price. But the busyness never includes doing something for society's outcasts. As present-day hearers of the story of Abraham and Isaac, we are horrified by the thought of child sacrifice. Train children in the right way, and when they are old, they will not stray. But the opposite of that is true too. They won't stray from the things that you teach them if they're bad things. What are we training our children to do and to be? This church has re-embraced the original mission of the Christian church to assist the poor and the sick, to give hope to the people that society pushes to the fringe, running a food pantry, assisting refugees, not a real popular notion in this country. Can you imagine how beat down the fathers of families that require the assistance of a food pantry or that are trying to set up a new life in this country, how they feel? Some of the families that we met last year on our mission trip, some of those dads were engineers in their previous life. And they come to America and none of their credentials are recognized, and they're stocking shelves in a department store. Teaching children requires us to build a more mature relationship with God. One where we seek opportunities to serve instead of expecting a pastor to serve a childlike understanding. Churches that are open to the inspiration of the Spirit find ways to step out in faith, to address issues of social justice, to make church something that isn't defined as a building. It requires faithful people teaching children by example the lessons of giving time and money. Vacation Bible School isn't free. It requires parents to actively engage in a continuation and maturation of their own faith, as well as their children, instead of sacrificing them to the gods of modern culture. So if you made time for being here today, I appreciate that. Because there's a lot of families that say, well, no, we've got sports later on today, so we can't possibly go to church in the morning. God says, I'm not asking you to sacrifice your child. I'm asking you to choose me over every earthly thing. And I'll show you a way of living that will bring you great joy. Amen.